Imagine this. The world thinks WWE is bulletproof. Crowds roaring, lights blazing, superstars larger than life. But what fans didn't know is that behind the curtain, WWE came frighteningly close to shutting down forever, not once, but multiple times. And today we're diving into the moments that almost destroyed the entire company from the inside out. It starts with a moment so dangerous that even today, people whisper about it. During the height of Extreme Wrestling, Jeff Hardy took risks that went beyond entertainment. Fans were thrilled, but the danger was real. One stunt went wrong, nearly turning a live show into a tragedy that would have forced WWE to answer questions the company was not prepared for. Critics slammed WWE for pushing performers too far, calling it reckless and irresponsible. Had the outcome been worse, the fallout might have ended the company on the spot. Then came a wave of chaos involving CM Punk, whose exit and the storm around it brought massive criticism. His public complaints triggered a news frenzy. Interviews exploded across the internet. Ratings slipped. Fans questioned the ethics of WWE's backstage environment. Sponsors began making cold phone calls. For the first time, WWE felt the pressure of a superstar rebellion threatening the very foundation the company stood on. But WWE's biggest threats weren't just walkouts, they were legal hurricanes. During a time when the world was watching closely, Stone Cold Steve Austin became part of a public controversy that dragged WWE into headlines they wanted no part of. News networks tore apart every detail. Lawsuits piled up. And the company found itself fighting for survival in courtrooms instead of arenas. One wrong verdict, one severe ruling, and the WWE empire could have crumbled overnight. Financial destruction was another looming disaster. Heavy spending, risky ventures, and shows that cost more than they earned brought WWE to the edge. It reached a point where even megastars like John Cena couldn't save the slipping ratings. Networks questioned the value of continuing the partnership. Critics said the product was stale, outdated, and losing the magic that once dominated television. The fear was real. If the numbers dipped any further, WWE would have lost the broadcast platforms that kept it alive. Then there was the moment when Randy Orton became the center of massive controversy. Media outlets circled like sharks, dragging WWE's name through weeks of non-stop criticism. Parents questioned whether WWE was safe for kids. Some sponsors temporarily backed off. Every reporter wanted WWE on record. Inside the company, executives were terrified. They knew that one more scandal added on top of this one could push WWE past the breaking point. But one of the closest calls came from the injury era, a time when intense matches led to brutal outcomes. Brock Lesnar, known for unmatched power, delivered moments so real, so violent, that the line between scripted entertainment and genuine danger blurred. Analysts on major news channels argued that WWE was promoting unsafe conditions. Medical teams raised concerns. There were backstage meetings where people genuinely wondered if WWE needed to shut down operations just to protect its future. One more severe injury could have sparked a national outrage strong enough to crush the company. Each of these moments pushed WWE to the moment was a blow. Every moment was a quake under the company's foundation. And every moment could have been the one that sent WWE down for good. Yet somehow, WWE survived. It rebuilt after scandals. It recovered from injuries. It transformed after criticism. It outlasted legal attacks and financial panic. It reinvented itself every time the world tried to bury it. But survival doesn't erase danger. Because the truth is simple, these 6 moments didn't just shake WWE, they nearly erased it. And here's the real question, if WWE barely made it out of these disasters, what happens when the next one hits? Can the company keep surviving? Or is the next breaking point the one that ends the entire legacy? Yet even after surviving wave after wave of chaos, the story doesn't end there. Because the truth is, every survival comes with a price. WWE didn't walk away from these moments clean. The scars remain. The criticism lingers. The world never forgets how close things came to falling apart. And that's where the real fear begins. Because if Jeff's brush with disaster could have collapsed the company, if Punk's rebellion could have shaken the entire backstage system, if Austin's legal battles could have buried the brand, if Cena's era couldn't stop the ratings decline, if Orton's controversy could have scorched WWE's reputation, if Lesnar's raw brutality nearly tipped the scales into national outrage, then what happens when all those dangers start circling again? The closing of this story isn't calm. It's a countdown. A warning. A reminder that even giants can fall. Look at the entertainment world. One wrong decision can erase decades of dominance. One scandal can crush a billion-dollar empire. One accident can shift public opinion forever. Companies bigger than WWE have collapsed overnight because of a single moment gone wrong. And WWE has already stood at that cliff multiple times. But the scariest part? These past dangers weren't the final chapter. New eras bring new challenges. Social media explodes faster than any news outlet. Fans are louder, harsher, and more divided than ever before. Sponsors have zero patience for controversy. Every superstar carries the weight of global scrutiny. And every mistake is instantly recorded, replayed, analyzed, and weaponized. Any of these could trigger the biggest crisis WWE has ever faced. The world today gives second chances to almost no one. Mistakes spread faster than apologies. Assumptions travel farther than truth. And nothing, not even a global wrestling empire, is safe from collapse if the wrong moment hits at the wrong time. So this story closes with a question that hangs heavier than any championship belt ever could. If WWE could barely survive the 6 disasters that shook it to its core, what happens when something even bigger comes along? What happens when the next scandal erupts in front of millions? What happens when a superstar walks out and brings the whole internet with them? What happens when an injury becomes a global headline? What happens when a sponsor pulls out at the worst possible moment? What happens when fans finally say enough? There was a time when WWE spent more than it earned. Massive productions, risky business experiments, expansions that stretched the company's budget like rubber about to snap. When the numbers came in, executives felt the ground drop beneath their feet. It looked like the company was one bad investment away from bankruptcy. If just one business deal failed, that was it. No WrestleMania. No Royal Rumble. No WWE at all. And then, there was the scandal that sent shockwaves everywhere. Something so big that it made worldwide headlines, dragged WWE through every news network, and put the company under investigation. Fans were stunned. Critics sharpened every blade they had. Advertisers panicked. And the leadership inside the company had to fight, not for ratings, not for storylines, but for survival. This moment didn't just threaten WWE's future, it nearly made history as the downfall of the most powerful wrestling empire on the planet. Every time WWE thought it stabilized, another storm hit. Public criticism grew. The online world exploded with negativity. Media labeled the company as out of control. And each time, WWE found itself one decision away from destruction. But here's the twist, WWE survived every single disaster. It clawed its way back from the edge of financial ruin. It reinvented itself after critics tore it apart. It tightened safety protocols, rebuilt fan trust, avoided legal death sentences, and proved again and again that no matter how hard the world tried to break it, the company refused to fall. But that doesn't erase the truth. These moments were real. They were dangerous. They were historic. And they nearly ended WWE forever. Because WWE may look unstoppable, but the scars from these near disasters will always remind the world how close the company came to disappearing. And the closing moment of this story? It's a question. A warning. A challenge. If WWE survived this much chaos before, what happens when the next disaster hits? Will the company rise again? Or is the next critical moment the one that finally takes it all down? And the reality is simple, yesterday's disasters almost ended everything. But tomorrow's disaster could be even bigger. The company is now walking across a thin line stretched above a worldwide audience. Every move is watched. Every risk is analyzed. Every slip has consequences. And history has already proven how close things have come to total collapse. So the story closes not with comfort, but with tension, a pressure that refuses to fade. A truth that cannot be ignored. The understanding that the company's greatest threat is not a wrestler, not a storyline, not a competitor, but a single moment capable of igniting global chaos. The questions linger like smoke in the air. What happens when the next scandal erupts without warning? What happens when a single moment turns into a storm of criticism? What happens when the audience refuses to forgive? What happens when one decision sends the entire world into outrage? What happens when the company can't escape the consequences? Will the empire adapt once again, evolving into something stronger? Will it rebuild itself in ways nobody sees coming? Will it rise from the next crisis like it has from so many before? Or will the next shock be the one that finally brings everything crashing down for good? Nobody, not the insiders, not the fans, not the critics, not the executives, knows the answer. All anyone knows is that the next big moment is coming. The next uncontrolled spark is inevitable. And the entire wrestling world will be watching with breath held tight, waiting to see whether the Empire stands tall.